everyone, it's Gift Toppy here with 23 Home, Glenn and Gift here. Today we have a special guest in our office, which we all love. Building relationship in this business is the key, right? And we also run into each other because we have, as you know, we are certified divorce real estate. And so special to have you here today. David, tell the view about you a little bit.
Well, thank you guys for having me. My name's David Whiting. I'm a partner with the firm of Wright & Whiting in Vienna, Virginia. We also have a satellite office in Herndon. And it's essentially a full service practice. We do have specialties in estate planning and administration. We also have a strong trial advocacy practice, which encompasses divorce, special needs law, and business law.
Yeah, many people don't talk about divorce until too late a lot of time.
Right.
As for us as a realtor, we would love to be your network and helping you. That's why we connect you to the right person, right?
Excellent.
Are you thinking about divorce or planning divorce? You know what? Today we have an expert next to us, David Whiting from the Oak Hill attorney.
That's right.
He is packed full of information and knowledge. You can tell that he always say, look at my experience with all my gray hair. Watch this video. Hi guys, it's Gift Toppy Hughes with 23 Home and here with Glenn, and we're matching. But guess what? We have a divorce attorney with us here, even though we're wearing pink. So David, tell the viewer who you are.
Well, good morning. Thank you both for having me today. My name is David Whiting. I'm the founder and principal at the Oak Hill Law Group in Herndon. We're a full service practice with specialties in estate planning and administration, as well as trial advocacy, including family law, divorces, business law, and special needs law and advocacy.
That's amazing specialties you have, because we always running into a client, right Glenn?
Yeah.
Many times either divorce, and also already we are divorce real estate certified.
Yeah.
And then we have family. There are a lot of problems with the kids,
I think so.
in school, and yeah.
Absolutely, and there's real value in combining those practice areas, because rarely do you have someone with just one specific legal issue in their lives that don't impact any other areas. It's having access to that additional context. How does the divorce impact your business? How does the business impact your children at home and their school arrangements and your other planning arrangements? How does estate planning fit into that whole context? So by combining those things, we find that we can consistently offer clients a better and more complete product.
Excellent. Now, it's interesting because you need to be both a subject matter expert on the 4 areas that you named, but you also need to be an expert at law to be able to link the two together to make a better argument and more compelling legal case. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about how you've done that.
So it raises an interesting question, and so often, especially in Northern Virginia, the focus is on specializing. You want the fastest, most direct route to solve a problem. But what I think time in the practice and perhaps the gray hairs have taught me is that very few routes are a straight 2-lane highway of open road. There are other considerations that impact your legal results and your legal concerns. And so looking in a broader perspective, seeing a little farther down the road and understanding how issues that you may not yet have realized are issues could impact the result that you're seeking allows me to sort of see ahead and anticipate bumps in the road. And thus really what I'm able to provide is more peace of mind and a more complete solution by having a broader focus.
So let's talk about each one of these areas here. Let's say that someone was interested in, let's say, a divorce. What are some of the first steps that someone should take if they're, pursuing or considering, breaking up with their spouse?
When you say pursue the divorce, they already separate, or they just thinking about divorce and consult with a lawyer?
Just thinking about a divorce. Great question. You haven't really, maybe you've discussed it with your spouse, but yeah, I mean, you're taking your first step into really moving in that direction. So what does that look like?
That's a fantastic question, and I get that question a lot. And every lawyer likes to say it depends, and that's because it depends. So is it likely to be an amicable split? Is it an unknown context, unknown sort of methodology, or is it something that is going to go into court and it's going to be difficult to resolve? The more difficult the conversations are, the more you need to start by thinking about protecting yourself and your assets. So this is the time to gather information. Gather all the financials that are in the file cabinet in the basement, because 2 months from now they may be harder to obtain. Think about the gotchas, especially if there are kids involved. You can't just move out of the house without something in writing in place, sort of delineating the custodial arrangement, or else you make yourself vulnerable to custodial claims. So what are some of the gotchas? And that's the thing where you need that's exactly why you need a broad perspective, because you have to be able to anticipate issues that you haven't really considered. The relationship may be reasonably amicable and you can talk about stuff. It may not be. There may be threats. The other side may be gathering information. How do you see what's going on? How do you protect yourself, and how do you avoid costly mistakes? So that's the first part of the process.
Yeah, I know a lot of time you all go through this is a lot of emotion, right? People don't think straight because they're just like, oh, this is what I see from other people do, or copy the wrong person. But the right way is to just start focus and consult to the right attorney like you.
That's right. Seek expert advice, because it's exactly what you said. When you're that emotionally attached to the result, you tend to lose objectivity. And even the super smart people in Northern Virginia, even people who are financial professionals or educational professionals, even other lawyers, you need to have that outside perspective, because it allows sort of a detached, objective viewpoint into what's going on, what the goals ought to be, how you tailor that for your situation, how you address the emotional turmoil that everyone in the process will be going through to one extent or another, and how you use that to craft a result that keeps you legally safe, keeps your kids, if you have kids, on an emotionally stable footing, so it's not going to impact their growth trajectory or their education any more than it just has to. How do you plan around that? And is it the type of environment where you can prioritize the kids' well-being, or is this going to be a really nasty divorce fight, which I certainly don't want to see unless that's just forced upon you. I would prefer to help you avoid that sort of situation, so the divorce could be resolved in a dignified way that will have a smaller impact on your kids' growth. It'll have a smaller impact on your career because you're exhausted and distracted from the emotional fighting. How do you continue to live a life and continue your personal growth?
And it's different from state to state. What is it here in the state of Virginia, if just hypothetically speaking, if you do have kids? What's the separation periods? Because I know it's different, it varies.
Sure. So in Virginia, there's no such thing as legal separation. There's not a particular legal state called separation, but a 1 year separation, it is. 1 year separation is still a ground for a no-fault divorce with kids. So 12 months living separate and apart, even though it can be in the same home, because that's just a financial necessity for a lot of people these days. That's one of the grounds. There are also fault-based grounds if people are bad actors or make mistakes along those lines. But the most common ground of divorce in Virginia is the 1 year separation, because you don't then need to litigate the grounds for the divorce itself. Everyone agrees that we're at a point where it just doesn't make sense to go on. It's more like a business transaction, and if you're not arguing fault, then you have a better likelihood of finding some common ground for kids and finances, right?
Yeah, kid is so important because, like parent fighting, there are a lot of things to affect, right, guys? So with divorce, I know it's so impact emotional, financial, and exhaust energy. So that is something that, David here, he's the expert. So wow, David, that's amazing. I have one quick question though.
Sure.
So do you most likely to just consult with one party or both husband and wife together?
Mm-hmm. So generally speaking, you can't have a legal representation in a contested matter where you have one party against the other. I couldn't offer legal advice to both. One of the things that sort of distinguishes me is, while I do get in the courtroom and mix it up, I hope with reasonably good effect. You guys have seen some of that for some of our mutual clients. I also offer mediation at the firm, where I can work with both parties, not as a legal representative, but as someone who is helping them find that common ground. And if you can find enough common ground in a divorce, then I can create the separation document, which you could then take to your own respective attorneys, have that person review it, make sure everything matches your understanding and their understanding of the case. But a mediated result, I'm helping both sides. It's much less expensive. It offers more customization than you would get in a courtroom, because the judge doesn't understand that, Johnny has cello on Thursday afternoons and that impacts the custodial transition time. There's only so much a judge is going to pick up on, but a mediated result, the parties have control and customization over every aspect. So in that sense, I can work with both sides in that limited context.
Correct, absolutely. So, backing up here just a little bit, when you are looking at a divorce, there's really kind of 4 common areas of any type of divorce. And I'll name those, rattle them off for you. So ordinally thinking, you can kind of make a ticker in the back of your mind, and then David and I are going to discuss those just ever so briefly. The first one, and I'll run through them real quick. The first one is financial, or let's just back up. But the first one is going to be legal, right? There's a legal component to a divorce. There's a financial component to a divorce. There's an emotional component to divorce, and then there's the big ticket items such as planes or houses. Gift and I are experts on the plane and houses side. But when you put together a package for someone, and I hate to say it as a package, but really you're looking at the holistic health of the individual on both sides of the party. Being able to address those 4 issues is kind of a team effort, and you have to be able to, there's an adversarial part possibly, and then there's of course the team on the other side. So there could be even 2 different teams working against each other. But from the legal standpoint, how important are the other 3 components as it dovetails into you in a semi-contentious type of environment? How important, and then how do you work in the same sandbox with your own team, and then maybe talk about the bad guys. We'll call them the bad guys.
Sure, and there are some out there. That's absolutely right. So the legal aspect of a divorce can be looked at in a couple of ways. Some people roll their eyes when they see lawyers. The last thing they want to do is get a legal letter or have a judge intervene in some sort of situation. I encourage clients to think of it a little bit differently, sort of like good fences make for good neighbors. That's an expression you may have heard. I find that good legal frameworks make for peaceful divorces and post-divorce relationships, because ultimately, in some cases, it's about sticking it to the other side. That's not generally the type of case that I like to take on unless there are really good reasons. But what I want to do is think down the road, how are you going to live life in a way that actually benefits you long term? It feels really good to win an argument, but it could be the most costly argument you've ever won. There are unanticipated consequences. So legally, what's going to happen with custody? There's legal custody and physical custody. What are those boundaries? What customization do the parties have after the fact? Are they allowed to make trades and exchanges and have that working relationship? It also impacts property division. It impacts retirement splits, and you have subsequent legal work in terms of quadros or adros, which are essentially further court proceedings which divide up retirement accounts of one kind or another. So the legal framework is really, really important, and I find that the more clear you can create in terms of the legal relationship, the more likely you are to find enough common ground to make the post-divorce years more tolerable. So it's very important to sort of see the issues that creep in. Where are the gaps? Where's the uncertainty? Uncertainty is not your friend in terms of a legal agreement in a divorce situation. You want it to be as clear as possible. You want to anticipate as many problems as you possibly can, so there's less stuff to argue about 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road. And with kids, you could be looking at 15, 20 years down the road when you're still dealing with that post-legal relationship.
College and master's degree and marriages down the road. Absolutely.
And that could impact your estate planning, because one of the things people do here, and we'll probably discuss estate planning in a bit, people set up trusts for their kids, and one of the considerations is asset protection when your kids get married. So what does the post-divorce environment do to the money so that you then have flexibility to address totally seems disconnected but still connected issues?
Right. And then we'll skip over the financial one here in a second, but I do have a question for you. But let's go to the emotional aspect. Sometimes in a court case, or even outside the court case, it's good to really, I'm going to say, address your mental health. You may feel like you're in a good position because you're away from that negative environment, but there's always some type of latency type of emotional stuff. So, I mean, how we handle it is that we just are open communication, and we have someone talk to somebody no matter what the situation is when you do the real estate divorce, because the emotions are attached to the house. But from your perspective, you really have got 2 components of that. The first component is going to be the actual well-being, mental health for that individual, but then maybe perhaps there's also a diagnostic that has to come into the legal ramification. So how do you balance those 2?
That is very challenging, and it's a case-by-case situation. Everybody's in a little bit of a different boat. The emotional component, my job as a lawyer is to be understanding and sort of see where you're coming from, see your side of things, advocate for you, because quite often in divorces people feel they haven't been able to get their messaging across to the other party effectively for whatever reason. And it takes two to tango, so nobody's ever, well, very rarely are people ever perfect in their marital communications, except for all of us.
Sure. Yeah, so you should have been here 20 minutes ago.
So there's always challenges to go around, but people need to feel validated. And it's like that, I find, in any sort of litigation context. You can have two totally detached business people who have entered into some sort of contract, but it's gone south for whatever reason. There's an emotional context. It impacts your decision making, your ability to resolve. In a divorce, it's that much more intensified because this is your life partner for a period of years, no longer going to be the life partner. So how do you begin to disentangle that? How do you balance your emotional needs versus the other side's needs? How do you do that in a way that isn't going to create legal obstacles? So is therapy a good thing? Yes. Do those therapy notes come into a legal determination down the road? That may or may not be a good thing depending on circumstances. So that's where you speak with your lawyer. Is it okay? Is it safe in this situation for me to go seek treatment for this or that, or seek diagnosis? And if I'm going to do that, how can I protect myself so it's less likely to come up and be used against me? How would that play out in court?
It's important.
Absolutely, because I could paint you as problematic if you have a diagnosis that is severe and adverse to the kid's best interest. I could also paint you as proactive, and you have an issue, you're trying to resolve it so that the kids can then benefit from your increased stability.
So while David, as you already explained, I'm like running to all this in my head. Oh my God, how many clients that I know or can be helping. That's a lot, right? But make it simple. We cover emotion, we cover financing, we cover a lot of things. But what is we good at is the real estate. That's what we're selling and we advisor. So when it's come to split, we always thinking of, okay, who wanna get the house or what, right? There are a lot of people think of that. And also this is a consider a big financial asset. What do you recommend in that point to do? I mean, besides working with us, and of course we're working with you together.
Right. It's a perfect question because it comes up in almost every divorce. Most of my clients are homeowners. Many even have rental properties, which is also an issue we could discuss. It is, most people, the home is the biggest asset that you're likely to own at this phase of life. And so they're good questions. The things to think about off the top are, what is the impact going to be on kids? Is the house an asset that would allow you to get a different custodial allocation than otherwise you might? Or is it a situation which is honestly more likely where you could take the house, one party gets it, the other gets a larger size of proceeds out of the divorce? Or there's a refinance, in which case the proceeds are then allocated evenly between. And then you can go and find a different housing arrangement for yourself. But something has to happen with the house. Quite often, one side will buy out the other side. However, what we're seeing, especially right now with interest rates in the stratosphere, is that it's a very hard time to get a refinance. It just creates a higher monthly payment, and sometimes that's unsustainable. In which case, either something is worked out between the parties. You can have, a nesting situation where both parties have use of the house for a period of time. You have, maybe the kids live in the house with one parent primarily, and then they go out for, alternating weekends, and the other person's in a rental or even a less expensive purchase somewhere even maybe a little bit farther geographically. You have to move some pieces, and you have to sort of roll up your sleeves and get dirty, because there is no one clean solution for every family. If a refinance is not possible, if the asset's going to have to be sold, how are you going to decide who has what responsibilities leading up to the sale? That's part of your negotiation or court process. Who's got to fix up, that back deck? Who's going to fix up the paint?
I know, that's a lot.
Exactly.
That's a question. And that just lead into what Glenn can help, right?
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think?
So I mean, what we offer attorneys are, the first question is how much is the house worth? So we have got professional appraisers. The second question is there anything wrong with that? We have home inspectors who go through the house to find out whether it's even livable or not. And the other component is the clue report, which is the insurance. Sometimes you'll have one party not knowing the other party has taken insurance claims against it. And the fourth, or the fifth one I should say, is are there any hidden type of mortgages?
Like lien or credit card that link to the home, right? So
that's right.
The other one hiding it, and it's like, oh, when they run through the whole history, it's like, oh, I didn't even know about this.
So those are fantastic points, and I'm really glad that you brought those up, because what I've found in practice with enough gray hair to have been at this a while, there are realtors and then there are realtors. And so, for instance, working with Gift and Glenn, I can give them a call and I can say, look, here are my concerns. I'm going to do the title search. I'm going to check and make sure there's no legal stuff that's going to impact the sale, but can you help me understand whether there are insurance considerations? Can you give me some numbers on what the net effect would be of making certain remediations? Here's the sales price now. What's it going to be if we invest 20 grand fixing up certain components? How's that going to impact sales price? Is it a good deal? Does my client have the cash flow to leap into that now? Is it something that gets allocated later? If I have good data without having to spend a lot of legal hours creating the data myself, it's a huge value add to the clients. And so that's the real value. Aside from enjoying working with the people that you work with, I can get good information quickly. It's going to be correct. It's going to be professional, and I can represent my client better having that asset on our side of the table.
And we just finished up a case, quite frankly, without naming names. It was probably a 2-year case, more or less.
That was an absolutely nuts case, and it's very rare to have a situation go that long. This is the real advantage of having lawyers involved earlier, so that you don't create messes and you don't have issues of non-compliance and bad faith, because those things are tracked. The value of a lawyer is to calm the waters, ideally. And so this was a case, we probably had every hurdle we could possibly have.
Every hurdle.
I learned so much from the case, by the way. I've done so many divorce real estate, but this case is very unique.
It was very unique, and it created an interesting legal sort of strategic quandary, because how do you corral essentially a bad actor in a situation post-divorce when people are going out of their way to be difficult and uncooperative? How do you line up the pieces so that their ability to cause distraction shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and you pen them in legally so that you can get the focused result, the safe landing that your client needs. Sometimes it takes longer than others, but hopefully most will be less contested than this.
Yeah, so every problem is have solution. Which way that you can choose, right, David? Especially when you're thinking about divorce, there are a lot of things as you hear for us talking here. There's so much more to go through. But here's a problem, David. When they have that issue, that is so stressed. What the state that you think they should seeking to the professional like you or us? What type,
What type of client you
Yeah, what type of client?
So that's a fantastic question, and I'm finding that most of my clients right now are people in our age category. We have kids either middle to high school, early college, that sort of time frame. The parents are at the peak of their career in terms of time investment and ideally revenue. Hopefully that goes together. You're making decisions about college, you're planning that stuff. Teenagers, I'm told, are not the easiest people to manage in terms of parental relationships, so you may have additional stress that wasn't really there in the same way in earlier years and hopefully in later years. So those sorts of people who they may be a business owner, they may have an ownership interest in something, they may have rental property, they may have a lot of things going on while balancing work, while balancing a marriage. You may have special needs among your kids. That's far more common than people realize, and it's one of the things that I try to specialize in is advocating and helping situations for families who have kids with special needs. All these issues come into play right now. So a parent in the age range, late 30s to early mid 50s, that's really the sweet spot for my practice. Of course, I can go on either side of that. Just this morning I did a power of attorney for an 18-year-old who's headed off to college in the fall, because he would like for mom and dad to be allowed to talk to the doctors if something happens. It's pretty prescient for an 18-year-old to think of that.
Yeah.
And I also do a lot of end-of-life stuff. So you're at the verge of a decline in health, and so how do you make legal arrangements for your care? How do you dovetail that with the financial arrangements? That's also an opportunity to speak with an experienced realtor, because you may not need all the house that you have at that stage of the game. Maybe those assets are better directed in other ways. But that sweet spot of parents with high school age kids, give or take a bit on either side, I really think that that's where you benefit from working with experienced professionals in our field, so you get that full context and you can address the issues to give yourself the peace of mind to address the other issues in life that much more successfully.
And how was the communication with 23 Homes during this particular case, without naming names?
Outstanding. Well, it's a little bit unfair to say because Glenn and I have had our kids grow up at the bus stop, so we've chatted, every morning before school for years and years. But working with Gift and Glenn, they're always accessible by phone. We have a very cordial and available relationship. So when a message needs to go out, it's acknowledged, received, acted on quickly. Many clients are delights to work with. Sometimes it can be harder. Just depends on the situation. So it's that much more important to have a good working relationship between the professionals so that it's comfortable, efficient, and we can problem solve without a whole lot of distraction. And I really found a lot of value working with you guys in that way.
Oh, same to us too. This is a lot of valuable information. I'm glad that you're here with us, and of course we experience working with him. That's why we can say, we don't just recommend people to the right, we connect the right person to the right problem, fix the problem. So that's what we here for. They call us the real estate solution. That's why we want to keep our name in there. So guys, if you think about divorce or planning divorce or afraid to talk to other people, of course this is confidential, right? Every case is different. Don't be afraid to reach out to us and
send an email.
Yeah, so if you think this video valuable for anyone, please like, share, and subscribe on our channel. Of course, we would love to be your real estate and helping you to the smooth closing. Is there anything else for you guys that you want to add in?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for doing
this. Thank you so much.
See you, everybody.
You got me running, got me running.